Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Bosses for Babies Live, a conversation series at the intersection of business and early childhood. We've had so many great bosses join this series already, talking about family-friendly business policies or how they're active as advocates for young children throughout the state. And today we turn to community involvement. I'm joined today by John J.B. Birney. He's owner with his two sons, John Jr. and Shay, of J. Birney Financial in Flagler Beach. And so his work is focused on people making sure their investments are setting them up for a successful future. But really his passion is making sure that our community is making investments in children to set them all up for a successful future. JB is also acting chair of the Early Learning Coalition in Flagler and Volusia counties. And some of you may have a moment of recognition when you hear his voice because he's in his 20th year of producing a radio show, Good Morning Americana, on the radio in St. Augustine. And I'm sure available for people to tune in somehow on the internet too, huh, JB?
Yes.
But anyway, let's just jump right in and get started. And I know if I ask you, what's the most important thing in the world, you're going to say it's something about early childhood. What do you think about that?
Well, and thanks so much, Madeline. I got to say, this is an honor because I just love the children's movement so much. And obviously being involved in the Early Learning Coalition, the issues that affect my community with 0 to 5-year-olds and beyond are really important. But again, when you talk about what's most important, I'd have to say is there's so many causes and people have burning desires to help in whatever area really gets them excited. And one of the things I always say is not to take priority, but our issue should take priority. Investing in 0 to 5-year-olds will help every other issue we have, So sometimes I get to speak a lot about early learning just because people know me for that. They recognize that I talk the talk. And I remember talking to a group of retired FBI agents one day about, crime and things like that people worry about. And I said, I can't stop a 15-year-old from, vandalizing your house tomorrow. But if you give the right, the right attention to 0 to 5-year-olds, I can stop that kid from robbing your house 15 years from now. It's a deferred gratification. And again, people are passionate about disease, about we're very active with K through 12 kids and making sure they have everything set. And I say all of those things, whether it's teen pregnancy, childhood obesity, mental health, all of those things will be so much better off with a focus on early learning. So it's ironic that I'm an investment person because truthfully, it is the best investment of the community chest. If there's money where, people have money so they can, they're the county council person, they're the city council person, they're the governor, they're anybody. And they say, where's the best return for my community? Again, the financial advisor part of me says it's a no-brainer. It's definitely investing in 0 to 5-year-olds versus so many other things like prisons and, things that we try to do vocational training way late in life a lot of times with high schools. I said, boy, that vocational training would be a lot easier and building job skills would be a lot easier if we started so early when the brain's developing. That brain developing 90% in the first 5 years of life is something that we should pay attention to. So yes, I do think the most important thing in the world is bosses and our community recognizing that investing in this demographic of 0 to 5-year-olds, which again, unfortunately, they have no lobby group. Well, we're getting better at that stuff. But the truth is that there's just nobody fighting that fight a lot of times except the parents, So we put a lot on the parents. So I want to help the parents. Sometimes the parents don't have all the tools. So as a community member, I talk the talk and I try to walk the walk, and people know that about me. Again, my job has nothing to do with childcare, so I don't have skin in the game. So the idea that, this is something I truly think can save us and help, really change the world. I often say too, not that I'm off on my soapbox here, but the idea of planting a seed to grow a tree that you won't enjoy the shade under, that it'll happen in somebody else's life. Well, I don't think that's the case here. I think that, we can see ourselves alive 2 decades from now and beyond. And what a change we will make if we could just focus on this area. So I just say, again, not to be a jerk, but just the idea that if you want to help your cause, help our cause. And I just feel so strongly about it.
Yeah, I mean, you talk about the shade, and what you're saying is you plant the seed and you will enjoy the shade. So you're in the 11th year now of a successful home book delivery program in Flagler County. How did you get it off the ground? How'd you get it running?
Well, I've always been a Chamber of Commerce kind of guy. If you know, most businesses these days, I think every business these days, we realize now, especially during the pandemic, that it's based on relationships. You know, you have to build those relationships to do any kind of business in Florida or anywhere. So again, being a young financial advisor, I have always embraced the Chamber of Commerce type of thing, because really, I don't want everybody as a client, but I want to meet people, you know, and I want to have interactions with them. So it was actually through a chamber leadership class that I went through. I love leadership too. I did North Florida regional leadership. I did St. Johns County leadership. So when it was my turn to move my office here about 11 years ago, full time, I joined the leadership program at the Chamber of Commerce. And it was a homework project through our leadership class that just evolved with a friend of mine, Melissa, who was ran an early learning center, and a friend of mine, Alicia, who was working for the United Way at this time. We just had a casual conversation, and that became our homework project. And now we look back 11 years later, we have over 2,000 kids, 2,024 children as of this morning have graduated from the Imagination Library, the Dolly Parton Imagination Library here in Flagler County. And right now we have about, it just changed. 1,577 are currently enrolled, and we have a tiny county, but it was easy for us to do that as a homework project for a homework class. I had some experience with it, so I was able to lead my classmates, but we were basically banded together to say, hey, this is an important issue. Now, I will caution, when you're doing homework projects with your leadership classes in Chamber of Commerce, they don't appreciate legacy projects that never end, you know? So it's awful challenge for your friends, but I've been blessed. And my alumni from that leadership class, we've stayed close together and we've all chipped in. I mean, most of us are still close friends, and that was 2010. So it's quite a while ago. And I can always count on them. And now we've been blessed. We have some sustainability here. We had to do a slow rollout in raising the money because it was all up to us to do that. But Dolly Parton she doesn't raise any money for us. We do that as a community, and she takes care of all the books. So every book is produced and mailed right to the child's house. The first book is The Little Engine That Could, with a letter from Dolly. And then on their 5th birthday or their 5th year in the program, they get the final book, which is Look Out Kindergarten, Here I Come. So it was kind of a thing where it started out as a homework project, really. And then it just catches fire. It's a great thing to talk about. And now having it in our community for over a decade now, it's really a blessing because we expect it, you know, and now people have gone through and graduated their kids and they have such an affinity. We probably don't do a good enough job bringing them into our early learning community after going through that. But again, it's especially, and Madeline, I always say this, it's especially good for dads. I mean, moms are awesome, but dads a lot of times don't get the credit. And having a book come to the house every month is so exciting for dads. You know, they're like, JB, I can't get that kid. As soon as that book comes in, I'm sitting down as soon as I get home from work. And I love that. It just melts my heart. So again, we've been blessed with a decade worth of those experiences. And when people find out I have something to do with it, it's funny how they pull me aside. And again, especially the dads, I get a big kick out of that. But really it was a group of caring people. It was a nucleus of caring people. And my friends will tell you, I did not do this alone by any stretch, but I'm the biggest cheerleader. I talk a lot, I talk the talk, and I hear them saying the words. Madeline, you and I talked about this, but the idea that in a chamber situation of dealing with other businesses, that the language of economic development that has to do with childcare, you know, with taking care of working families' kids so that they can work, so they can be our teachers and our police and everything like that. people don't realize that this wasn't always under the Department of Education. This was the workforce thing that we came up with, was really to help workforce initiatives. But now it's a little more than that. Now, again, the children's movement gets that message out so well all the time to say, this is where the investment should be. This is where we can fix things. You have to learn about it first. It doesn't come natural. But when I hear other chamber chairs that came after me in a position of leadership on the chamber talking about third grade reading scores, I go crazy, because that's not a normal chamber topic. But now I know that it's seeped in a little bit that, hey, these are important things for our community to be top notch.
So JB, you talked about the brain development. You just mentioned third grade reading scores. When you think about other people having to get it before they take this on, what are the other big things that you share that bring people along?
Again, sometimes people want the numbers. I always think about when we first brought the Dolly Parton Imagination Library to Flagler County, I would go to Rotary groups and I would speak to everybody, and they wanted to know, what are the statistics? And I was like, we're just starting this thing. We don't have any statistics. Dolly Parton only brought it out to the nation, in the 2000s. She did it in Tennessee back in the late 90s, but we don't have them. Well, now there's numbers. Now I would be, it's funny, 10, 11 years later, I would be bold to go into those groups and say, here's your numbers. Because we just saw something recently with the coalition. This is wearing my early learning coalition hat, and this is part of the state's new bill that's proposed within the state of Florida. But the idea of bringing books to a household over a year's period of time could be the equivalent of a year in preschool or something. Again, I'm a financial advisor, so this is not my area, but the idea that those kind of things are said, really, again, that should get people excited. So I think part of it is that, again, you kind of have to make the connections of again, you have to hit them in their pocketbook. Again, the issues they care about, because everybody does have Birney. I love how everybody cares so passionately about their issues. But I want them to know about ours. I want them to know that a lot of these things, I often say, think about the slack in the system. If we really paid attention to this, think about all of whether it's mental health issues or whatever. I said, if we really did a full court press, helping 0 to 5-year-olds have the healthiest brains and be the best people they can from that standpoint, boy, there'd be a lot of professional services dealing with other tough issues. It wouldn't make everything go away, but there'd be a lot of slack in the system, I have a feeling. We'd really allow those professionals to say, it's kind of like how we make police deal with mental health issues. It's like, we need more help in these areas. So again, we might not be able to save ourselves. I don't mean, I'm a very positive guy. I'm a glass half full person, but the idea of we've got to let these kids save themselves. Our generation screws up to certain points, but here we are in an opportunity to really invest in that age group, regardless of their parental situation or anything. We can't have this, pointing the fingers that we do all the time. But imagine if we really as a community put our heads together to say, hey, this is important. And again, the Dolly Parton Imagination Library is not the do all and end all, but it's a great tool in the tool belt. The early learning coalitions, I feel, the children's movement, I feel, this is where the resources are. This is where the professionals are. I'm just a community member. And again, I get it because I've been doing this for a long time. I actually, David Lawrence is one of my favorite guys in the world, but I got excited when I figured out I was kind of into this about 4 years before he was, And so it was like, oh my gosh, I predated that already. Yeah, but again, the way Mark Wilson has become an evangelist, the head of the Florida Chamber, these are things that just are the best to me. I just love it because my coalition folks will tell you, JB doesn't like to start at square one every time. We always started at square one, explaining the early learning coalitions, what they do, the importance. And I used to pray to my board, please, can we start at square two just one time? Can we just be, and now we're there. We're starting to get there. You're seeing the legislation with companion legislation in both houses. That's crazy in our topic area if you've been doing this as long as I have, so.
Well, and it's interesting because in a way you brought back the history that this all started on the workforce side. It was about making sure that parents had a healthy and safe place to leave their children. But what's really been embraced now is the workforce of the future, that if you get this right early on, and children develop the skills of communication and cooperation and all of that, that's what you're describing going into the service industry years on, or the shade of the tree, that this is the nurse who's taking care of you, and things like that. But I'd love to dive a little more into the specifics. Tell us more. So when a family enrolls in this program, what do they get? And when they graduate, what does it mean?
Yeah, and we've made it pretty easy to enroll. When we first started, we had our own kind of, and God bless all my friends, we really did a good job putting our website together and doing all that, but it's a lot of work for people with regular jobs. So now we've kind of dovetailed with the coalition, because the coalition kind of helps spearhead the program in Volusia County. So in Flagler, we had our own thing, but now our website is together. So really, it's very easy. I'll give you a real life example from me 2 nights ago at a Breakaways, a restaurant here in Flagler Beach. I saw a family eating at the table next to me with 5 kids. One's a little tiny baby. Well, I went right up to that table and talked to that family and asked them if they were local, and they were. And I explained the Imagination Library with my mask on. And they were so appreciative. That dad was so appreciative. Now, I don't know if they signed up, but we make it easy. So you go online, and most people do not, Dolly Parton does one thing. She does the brochures. We don't even buy the brochures anymore because they cost us money. So young moms don't want brochures. People don't want brochures. But you can either sign them up yourself if they don't have a computer, or just get them to the site somehow. And once they sign up and the child is registered, they get a free book in the mail every month until they're 5 years old. The first book, I got a prop. Look, Madeline, I got a prop. The first book is The Little Engine That Could, Madeline's favorite book.
Well, my son's favorite book. That's
Okay.
the one he makes me read. Dad has other books.
And it's by Waddy Piper, and it was Dolly Parton's favorite book, but this isn't the Dolly Parton version. The one you get, the first page when you open up, has a letter from Dolly Parton in it, welcoming the child and the family to the Dolly Parton Imagination Library. I'll point out one thing, and you know this book is not a little kid's book. But it's her favorite, so it becomes the first ones. The rest are all age appropriate, So this book I actually read for our coalition. I read Winnie the Pooh's opposite book recently, and you can see it just has one word on it. Yeah. But I read that. So that's another thing that board members or people in the community can do. Get yourself out there, do that. My son even said to me, he said, "Oh, Lennon loved it. My granddaughter loved watching Big Papa read a book, so it's just fun. I can read to her in real life, but it's fun to do it on the video." Yes. But that book comes, then they get age appropriate books. A lot of people ask the question, "Oh, can we get a book in there? Do we have You cannot. You do not have any say in the books." That's the University of Tennessee. It's Dolly. It's people with they're doing this, and they're changing the books a lot, but they're all age appropriate books. So they're coming automatically straight to an address. Nobody has to pay anything, so just signing up. The last book, as I mentioned earlier, is Look Out Kindergarten, Here I Come, and it comes with a letter from Dolly as well. And Dolly Parton, if you followed the vaccine stuff with her investing in Moderna, she's just an amazing woman on so many levels. I did get to meet her one time, which was really, the only thing she said to me, as I gabbed away like I do, she said, "More books for more babies." I knew that she got my message. But she's amazing. But one of the downfalls, guys, is people think, "Oh, Dolly Parton pays for those books." That is not correct. So we do not want to stifle anybody's fundraising by thinking that Dolly Parton, she did it for her own community because people in her family couldn't read in Sevierville, Tennessee. So she did that. And then it grew to the whole state of Tennessee. And then in the early 2000s, it went, well, nationwide and worldwide. Now you can really see it worldwide. So it's one of my coolest things I've been involved with. But again, the picture is bigger than that. That interaction with me and that family was about the Dolly Parton Imagination Library. What I would have loved to talk about, Madeline, this, is the 3 T's. God bless PNC Bank doing this whole campaign with the 3 T's, because it's, am I getting off here? It's tune in, talk more, and take turns. But now you're interacting with a young person, and maybe you're showing their parents how to do the same. So again, don't be creepy. I kind of get creepy. Sometimes I'm following a pregnant lady around because I just want to talk to her, but the idea is you're really helping if there are people in your community. It's a great interaction.
Right, right. Well, so for anyone who has this in their community, I know in Miami-Dade, the Children's Trust funds a book club for 0 to 5 that our own family has taken advantage of, and so you have this in Flagler now in Volusia. So any business leader can be a voice when they see young children in the community to ask them to sign up. But what about replicating this? I mean, what does it take for another chamber to take this on? You already said don't do it as a leadership project necessarily. But what does it take?
Well, if there's any chamber staff on this call, they'll appreciate that, because all the things people do in chambers is think of things for the staff to do, and it's like, that's not how a chamber works, kind of. It's kind of a community thing, but I get it. And what do people do? They go through leadership class and not everybody stays involved. So it's work to be, and again, who would want this to fail? One of my favorite lines was when we were trying to get with the post office in the early days about what happens to a book that might not get to the person. I talked to a lady from the Dollywood Foundation, and she was a Southerner lady, and she said, JB, you just say to them, you don't want to throw those books away for those babies. I go, oh, could you move to Flagler County? Because you're the best. But again, you got to have people that care. And I think part of it is it doesn't take much. This is not a big dollar item. It costs us $30 per child per year. So basically, if somebody donates $30, they adopted a child for the year. Heck, if they pay $150, they took care of the entire child's life of receiving Dolly Parton books. So this is not an expensive thing. But here's another thing too. If this is important for communities, you're reaching the unreachables. In the early learning coalitions, we do not touch every child. We wish we did. Sometimes you guys, nobody gets to touch a child, at least interact with them until they're in kindergarten or something like that, till they get in the real school system. This touches the ones we can't reach. So the idea that you just ran into somebody at a restaurant like I did 2 days ago, and I'm sure they went home and say, that guy was weird, or whatever they say. I don't really care, because my first question is, do you guys live around here? And I don't think that's too invasive. And then they usually are very pleasantly surprised by my conversation. And again, my friends do that now. Think about it. My sphere on the radio, I've been there for 20 years. People know this about JB. I mean, I am a financial advisor, but the truth is that the thing is, if you don't do anything in planning financially, it's never a good outcome, right? So the truth is, these kids today that we're now building their brains, they don't want to make some of the mistakes that their parents made. Learning the hard way with money is so difficult. It's just hard to learn. You can learn a lot of other things in life the hard way. But my point is, these kids are learning, some of them, about money by watching their parents. So again, some people realize now, they're like, oh, wait a second, my upbringing wasn't that strong. I was missing in some areas. So again, the Early Learning Coalition, the children's movement, the tools are all there to make all of us better. But you don't have to have a kid. You don't have to be a parent. So I guess the thing is, a Chamber of Commerce should care, because this makes it better of community. Any organization, our Rotary here, and I'll give Rotaries a shout out, because Dolly Parton was named Rotarian of the Year in like 2008. I forget it. She's on the March cover of the Rotarian that year. And she said, wow, I thought I was a country music star. Turns out I'm a child's librarian. I love that. But our Flagler Beach Rotary, I mean, I'm kind of Flagler County and cover the whole county of Palm Coast and Bunnell and everywhere. But Flagler Beach's Rotary said, JB, we will take all the kids in Flagler Beach. So we invoice them for every child in Flagler Beach is registered. Home run, right? Because now we took and Flagler Beach is not a big place, but we took that chunk of kids out of the bigger number. So to get it started, we just need to, again, the coalitions are leading by example. The children's movement is a big supporter. The Daytona Chamber just reached out to talk to me. So, and I'll just wind me up and I'll talk about the importance of this. But I think our issues worldwide are skills related. They're skills related for the jobs of the future. And we like to complain about this and that and whatever, but the truth is, we can fix that. We can fix that with awesome investment. The best return on the investment is investing in this age group. And don't point the finger at the parents. Don't point the finger at the, gosh, our preschools, our child care centers are unbelievable. The quality is statewide, is rising, and everybody's looking at best practices. This year, I don't still know why we pay the employees like like they're washing dishes in a restaurant. It's crazy when they're handling the most important demographic to me. And again, to most people, it makes no sense. But
Yeah,
again, I got patience. I see it happening.
you're right. It's absolutely precious. It is brain building work that our early learning educators do, and not yet appreciated for that. But I've been scrolling through the chat as you were talking, and I think it's so important that you brought up the three T's, because this is about early literacy, but early literacy isn't just about the words on the page. It's the interactions with the adults. It's cuddling and talking about the pictures, and I think it's Melissa Rice who shared this, that you may not read it, but you could talk about the pictures, sing or cuddle. That those are all the things that build brains. So I think it's really a wonderful thing that you've done for this county. And I wonder if you have any other advice for small business owners who want to make an impact for children.
Yeah, and I kind of alluded to this already, but I do like what you said about singing to the kids. My son sings everything to our granddaughter in the tune of Frere Jacques. So
Oh,
Frere Jacques will go on for an hour. You could hear Frere Jacques with different words for an hour. I just think it's great. Um, but again, I think that you could start small. Start small with your own behavior. You know what might be a great thing to do? Learn the three T's. What's the kid talking about? Tune in. Hey, I'm tuned into what you're saying now, son or daughter or child, and let's talk more about that. Right. The second T is talk more. And then, hey, take turns, let's take turns. So those things are so helpful. And guess what? It's not that easy. I don't mean to, everybody glosses it over like it's not easy. It takes consciousness. It takes a conscious effort to say, I'm going to handle the situation that way. And I watch, again, I'm blessed to be a grandpa now, because I wasn't a grandpa until 5 years ago or so. So it was like, now it's just really weird to see right in front of you. But I watch my daughter, and she lives in Hong Kong, but I can watch her struggle with some of the same things, but the way she works them out is not the way we worked them out when they were little. It's a different thing. So you're seeing parents with a different language. And again, I know not everybody's got those tools. Not everybody's there, but as a community, and even if that bad thing about Florida that we get all the time is I had my kids up north and they went to school up north and I don't, it's like, please stop that. We all live in the same community here and we have to care about our neighbors, and we have to, I like where I live. I love where I live. I love where I live, work, and play. I love this area. So I want to make it better. That's just me. And if you said, JB, what's the best way to make it better? I just gave you the answer. It's investing in 0 to 5-year-olds. So if you start small by just support the Dolly Parton Imagination Library, go into any of the schools here in Flagler. I'm not as familiar with the Volusia schools, but I know a lot of people that run them. But here in Flagler, I mean, my kids grew up here. They went through the schools here. There's so many great people in the schools that would love your input, even the high school kids working with the younger kids. We have a lot of that happening. And again, whatever it takes for a community to focus its eyes to 0 to 5. And again, it's a number. If you invest $1 of the community chest in that number, and I'm not Kahneman or any of those economic guys who do this kind of stuff, but we know a lot of them. But I mean, the return is somewhere around 12 to 17% annually, and if you're building prisons and things like that, that's a negative return. That's a negative return. You don't make any money. So as a community, why not give it a try? And people could say, I often say this, I don't mean to sound like a jerk here either, but I say, you can say, JB, I don't care. You can't say, JB, you're wrong. You can't say it. You cannot say, JB, you're wrong. You can say, JB, I got bigger fish to fry. Maybe you do, but I'm not wrong. So anyway, I'll keep fighting the good fight forever. And I think it's working. It's glacial, but it's working.
Yeah, well, I loved what you said earlier about how this is sort of a down payment for the K-12 system, and you alluded to some of the conversation in the legislature. And so there's a bill moving through in both houses now, a home delivery book program for struggling readers, and that's in the K-5 years. So how beautiful is it to have something like this 0 to 5 library, and programs supported by the community that's a down payment to hope you have fewer struggling readers eligible for that state program, huh?
That's just such a good point, because the truth is, gosh, if books are good for K through 12, they must be unbelievable for 0 to 5. I mean, it's just like, who would want a kid in K through 12 getting extra books with a big thing like this without having any book exposure at 0 to 5? So I think that's another progression that says, oh, we're moving up the priority ladder. It's nice.
Yes, absolutely. Well, DJ Lebo, CEO of the Early Learning Coalition in your region, has just chimed in and said, "Did you see why we think he is the best chair ever?" And so I think that that may be a good point on which to end. And thank you for your time, JB, and for inspiring others to follow in these footsteps. Take on these talking points, bring in partners, see if you can bring a book delivery program to your region, and we'll take the call to action that this is a great thing for chambers of commerce to take on, and for the leaders within those chambers. So thank you so much. I think everyone also can see now why you are a boss for babies. Our bosses for babies are business champions all over the state who are involved either through community work, through promoting family-friendly businesses and reinvesting in their own employees who may have children, or just as advocates. And I think you touched on several of those. So we invite you all to visit www.bossesforbabies.com, follow what we're doing and the collection of business leaders who are involved in this, and check out our previous episodes of Bosses for Babies Live on Facebook. Stay tuned also for our next webinar in May, where we'll be debriefing on the legislative session and progress that we've made for young children and families. So with that, thank you so much, JB, for being with us and for sharing your passion, and of course for everything that you do in your community.
Thanks for having me. This has been an honor. Thanks.
Thank you.